quote of today is that every lifestyle choice you make is a deposit or withdrawal from your body's economy. And therefore, we need to invest in habits that fuel our health. Our main focus is targeting the chronic inflammation. So let's say the intestines is where we absorb and digest and also convert nutrients into health promoting substances, which we call metabolites. And this is dependent on the nutrients that we take, but also through the conversions that happen in the large intestines and through the action of microbiota. So let's say the intestines is the shipping port where there is all the imports coming in. Microbiota would be the customs department, which will take care and decide what goes in and how it goes in. Then we have the liver, which is the recycling plant of the body, and also the waste management center. So let's look a little bit deeper into the intestines. And here we can see that, of course, there's the epithelium, which is a single layer of cells, which separates the lumen, which is the hollow part of the intestines, from all the tissues. Now, what happens there is that, of course, there are nutrients coming in, and also we would have conversions of these nutrients into health-promoting substances, but also sometimes there is also toxic substances. So the balance of the microbiota is extremely important. Our main work in terms of research and development in this area in metabolic health is to actually identify specific groups of bacteria, as you can see there. Yeah, so you have different types of nutrients, dietary fibers, bile acids, carnitine, amino acids like tryptophan, and others. And then there are specific groups of bacteria that would convert these into health-promoting substances. As you can see, the fibers going to short-chain fatty acids, but those eventually are also providing a signal towards receptors that are activated, and they produce other health-promoting substances, either at the epithelial layer of the intestines or in subsequent tissues. So one of the main metabolites that we can see here are the short-chain fatty acids. They're extremely important to produce molecules such as GLP-1, something that we're hearing a lot about. But to be honest, the most important thing is that we stabilize the production of these very important substances like GLP-1, important for satiety and also fat storage, amongst others. So we have the intestine, microbiota conversions, and we have also some toxins that needs to be excreted. And if we compare this to the economy of a country, for instance, so we have metabolism in general, so that's our economy. Now, the terms of how to balance the economy is to have the right currency, and the currency to pay for essential services is actually a process. I'm associating that with a process which is called methylation. So methyl groups are actually the currency that are changing and paying off for our essential services. And the essential services are balancing of hormones, bringing down of stress, chemicals and hormones, and production of very important metabolites such as melatonin, that is extremely important in sleep. And this is all related also to the nutrients, because tryptophan produces serotonin produces melatonin. Okay, so it's all related to each other. And also an essential service is detoxification from the liver, which is also elimination of extra hormones like estrogens, which needs to be eliminated. And that's also regulated by the specific microbiota in the intestines called the estrogen. So, okay, so we have this economy, which is the metabolism, needs to be balanced. We have the currency, which is the methylation, which regulates all this process in terms of tagging proteins towards a specific process, elimination or recycling, or activation. And all these metabolites, we can put them into like sections, and here are two of these sections, which are hormones and neurotransmitters. Hormones are mainly the communication between our systems, and neurotransmitters are the brain, not only brain, the nervous system chemicals. So why is the quote, every lifestyle choice you make is a deposit or withdrawal from your body's economy? Because, first of all, if we think about specific habits, such as alcohol consumption, excessive substance use, endocrine disruptors, and there are a huge list of these that would need to be detoxified, then what happens is that we use most of our currency in detoxification of these substances that shouldn't be at very high levels. And this we call the emergency toxic debt. So once there is emergency toxic debt, we have a problem with the essential services, because instead of using the currency to pay for our essential services, we actually have a physiological change, and we utilize most of our methylation capacity into emergency services, detoxification. And this would result in hormone imbalances in neurotransmitters, imbalances in melatonin production. So basically what happens, this is very impactful on the metabolites, on how the system is working, and on the balance of the system. Now, what we also know that this is absolutely impactful as well on the machinery processes of actually producing these metabolites. And we know that this, like even if there is a disbalance in hormones, there is also a disbalance in the microbiota of these intestines. So where are we heading with understanding this economy and how to rebalance everything? Now, of course, we come into a little bit of the area of research, and we do a lot of research here, and we look at dysbiosis, which is the disbalance in the bacteria and the large intestines, and we also look at methylation capacity. Okay, so the dysbiosis is taken from stools, the methylation is taken from blood, and we put together all this process. Here we only show part of it, what we call the folate methionine cycle, which is extremely important in producing our methylation groups. So what we're doing is we're looking at absolute values in terms of methylation capacity, absolute quantification of intestinal microbiota, and we establish an algorithm to actually associate this balance of the microbiota and how we can identify the disbalance in methylation capacity, because most of our vitamins are actually produced by microbiota. And if you have a shift there, you also have a shift in the folate methionine part. The outcome of this research is that butyrate and folate producing bacteria correlate with higher methylation efficiencies. And we also look at amino acid degraders and also different taxa of bacteria associated with choline degradation. And if we put all this in an algorithm, we end up with a lot of data. We look at enablers and antagonizers in terms of methylation and the level of these bacteria, and we come up with something like this. So what are the functional role in terms of methylation, and what is the expected influence on the methylation capacity? And therefore, from tests, we can actually identify and predict methylation capacity as well from the microbiota disbalances. So there's a lot of interactions between microbiota, intestinal function, methylation function, and detoxification, and therefore the economy of the body. So it's very important to look at dysbiosis, which is this disbalance in the bacteria, And therefore, once we know this disbalance, we can actually utilize next generation probiotics so that we can restore and resolve the intestinal function. For instance, if there is a decrease in Akkermansia, which is extremely important in the methylation capacity score, then we need to provide specific prebiotics. Plus, of course, providing the right nutrients, yeah, to increase folate, vitamin Bs. So unfortunately, gut dysbiosis results in a number of diseases. And today we focused on a very specific process, which is the methylation capacity. So what's important is to test, to restore, and also to educate. We also have to take care of all the other pillars of lifestyle medicine in terms of resolving these conditions. I invite you to come on to LinkedIn. We set up a number of articles on LinkedIn. That article, these are 3 to 5 minutes interventions. Okay, I cannot not mention that currently we are setting up a book which will be launched in April 2026, and this is on lifestyle medicine and chronic disease in terms of prevention. Thank you very much for listening.